And that's great, for mom. But what's even better is if she comes home and I had cleaned the kitchen and, you know, and,
Yeah.
and
Boy, we really had to turn that into a system that was highly reliable and efficient for people to understand it.
and when we taught her about the injections and the fact that we could get it down to 1 drop a day, she just started crying with joy. That was her biggest concern.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Free Range Vision. I'm Matt Jensen alongside Dr. Vance Thompson. And for nearly 2 decades, we've been pioneering in practice, business, and team leadership. We'll cover everything from the pivotal lessons we've learned to the formidable challenges we've overcome and sometimes lost to, providing you with the essential tools to steer your journey and empower your team as you venture together. So whether you're at the helm of a practice or simply striving to cultivate a stronger culture, well, you found your flock. Let's venture off the beaten path together. Welcome to Free Range Vision.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us for yet another session of Free Range Vision. Once again, I'm Matt Jensen, and I'm joined here by my friend and colleague and longtime member, Dr. Vance Thompson. Vance.
Yep, Matt.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Today we're talking about something that's kind of a new way of thinking of things for us. It falls into this category of effortless. A book came out in 2013 called The Effortless Experience, and it was based on a big study of 100,000 consumers and what they preferred in their customer interactions. Now, there's a lot in there to learn. It was published by, at least some articles about it were published in Harvard Business Review. But I've always been somebody who's kind of a surprise and delight kind of person. And you have built, with some help together, we've built a couple of businesses on treating people well, paying attention to their details and their wishes and whims, and then surprising them based on what we can learn, kind of a secret service mentality. And what this book asserts is that, hey, that's good. That's really can be competitive, but not as competitive as taking the mundane things and making them automated or frictionless, making sure the operational pieces of your offering don't trip up or frustrate your clientele. And after kind of coming back to this content, boy, it hit me right between the eyes. Effortless experience.
It hit me between the eyes, too. I felt like I saw the rest of my experiential life laid out in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I, like you, get great satisfaction in, making someone's day and surprising and delighting. And, even during surgery, you've heard the stories. The guy who, we were talking about favorite foods, and he goes, "Oh, I just love Gino's Pizza." And we, made sure that next day, Gino's Pizza from Chicago, where he loves it, showed up at his doorstep. And, when I heard this, about the effortless experience, it not only blew me away, but I felt, a little disappointed in myself that I didn't get there myself.
Well, I want to hold you there because but where I wanted to go next, and I'm glad you teed it up, is I was tempted to think that too until I started to think about what you and Dr. Berdahl started to say, 15 years ago or so. You started to say things like, we have to make the right thing to do the easiest thing to do. Now, that is a different way to say the effortless experience. So it's not that we weren't there. It's just that it wasn't necessarily a core, curriculum.
Right.
But so I was tempted to be there too. So I just don't want you to do that. I want us to just really explore the ways companies can kind of build this into the framework of how they think, how they train their team. But like you, I can be quick to, overlook the work that we did do in the category. So,
well, and I agree with you. I mean, we even take customer or patient complaints, very seriously, and not only want to make the situation, hopefully better than if it hadn't happened, to end up with a relationship with that patient better than if the complaint hadn't happened. But then secondly, to use it as, hey team, let's look at our processes. How do we, lessen the chance of that happening again? What do we need to change? So, customer or patient complaints are just great ways to, use it to gradually improve your experience. And that's why over the years, the experience for a business becomes, so valuable. And so I get that part. I think the thing that, I think I underestimated the effortless part.
Yeah.
And it kind of reminded me of, I don't know why I thought of this, but when you're a little boy and you go to pick those first dandelions because they look so yellow and beautiful for your mother, and you come in and you show her, and her eyes just light up, and it's something that every little kid will remember, and that's great, for mom. But what's even better is if she comes home and I had cleaned the kitchen and and made life better and easier for her and more effortless. So I'm like, I was pretty good at the surprise and delight, but it probably needed to be a little better.
That would have increased her parental loyalty to you. Yeah, that's funny. It tends to be the stuff that we maybe overlook, that can be really helpful for people on the other side of the business exchange. I remember early on when I had first joined you and you sent me to Beverly Hills to visit your friend, Robert Maloney Vision Institute at the time. And there was a couple things that in reading this study, I thought about with his program. Because he's always been known for great customer experience, great team training, great surgeons, part of the team. But one of the things that he was trying then was this idea of starting the experience before the experience actually begins. And so he had, in the packet of information that they send out for people who are coming in for a free LASIK consult at that time, it included a CD for him to, it included a letter that said what radio station that you could listen to when you got into within range of his office. And it would just be kind of a thing on repeat about, you're on your way to Maloney Vision Institute. I just want you to start to, think about what you want out of your vision. As you're driving, notice things off in the distance, what frustrates you about your vision. Just start to calm yourself and we'll get into all of your questions. I was distracted for a second because that CD actually is for afterwards, for when you get in your car and you're leaving. Yeah. He also wanted to not just start the experience before a typical start, but he wanted to end the experience well beyond what a typical ending of a surgical experience would be. Right. But I just thought that was really clever. And he had also just hired someone, I don't remember exactly what his title was, but it was almost a concierge type person. His name was Scott. And he went on to do other things. But I remember being in his office and he was calling patients an hour beforehand, talking to them about where they were coming from. Hey, I can see you're coming from wherever. The 405 is a little backed up. You might want to take this alternative route. Just really anticipating things that could be an aggravation within that few hour slot of time that could affect that person's kind of psyche and well-being and decision making while they're in an environment where they've got to make a pretty big decision. And I just thought that was so clever to do that, to have that customer in mind.
He was ahead of his time.
Way before his time. What are some ways that you see this in other businesses? Have you ever had an experience, not in healthcare, but just where you thought, wow, they really anticipated way before I thought about it?
I've tried to work hard to not get too fascinated by vehicles. And so I've kind of had the same, vehicle over the years. Mm-hmm. And I like, Suburbans or Yukons. You can, load a bunch of people in there and
a dog or two.
And the dog and, beach balls, whatever.
Yeah.
And, but I'll never forget the time that, it said that it was about time to have the oil changed. And the guy that had sold me the vehicle called me and said, I know it's about time to have your oil changed. I know you're very busy. Do you mind if I pick it up and do that for you? And I said, wow, I mean, I would just love that. And he not only did it then, it became a routine. And I ended up buying whenever I wanted a new one. And I think it ended up being either 3 or 4 over a 15-year period. Every year I knew who I was going to go to.
Yeah.
Because he made it so easy.
And it had nothing to do with the vehicle.
Right.
It had to do with the future, inconveniences that any vehicle kind of creates.
Right.
That's extremely powerful. That's really what we're talking about here, is those kinds of things. I remember I like also reading up on Chick-fil-A, and a few years ago they started to take their drive-up window and put team members way out in front of the drive-up. Anticipating that people don't feel like they've even started their experience until they've made their order.
Right.
No problem. Then let's make them order. We'll let them order much earlier.
Right.
That'll also give us an advantage because we'll have a lot more time to prep their food.
Right.
Turns out it ended up being a huge efficiency for them, and now it's standard in all of their sites. So people are out in between cars, almost like it's NASCAR, taking orders that way. So what would be maybe an operational defect or frustrator has turned into something that really helps their business. And I don't think anybody would argue that Chick-fil-A has some pretty good customer loyalty.
Right.
What about the clinic? What are ways you've experienced it within your own 4 walls? Did anything come to mind?
Well, making the videos to communicate every step of the patient experience journey, took a lot of work and scripting and recording, and you were very involved with that, and I am just blown away, since patients aren't really told that's going to happen, how much that moves them.
Yeah, and just maybe describe it for people who are listening. Patient calls in, they are now scheduled for a cataract consultation. They've got a lot to consider. What happens next?
Well, they get the classic, packet of information mailed to them, but they also, get a video that's sent to their mobile, and, we make sure that that's okay, to do, and you get to get texting information, and then they can listen to what the appointment's going to be like and kind of get to know me and, whatever doctor they're going to be seeing for their consultation. But it serves as that first touch point of what to expect. And there's, then a consultation, that happens, and, we do all the, measurements and get to know them and their visual desires, hopes, and dreams, and try to help them with a great recommendation. And then, there's a video that comes to them, after that. That's between the clinic and the actual surgical experience. And, I have people tell me that really helps ease their anxiety. Probably one of them that is the most powerful, though, is the one that comes on the day of surgery.
Yeah.
And that video, even this morning, I did 22 cataract surgeries this morning. And I had, I don't know how many people said, about 4 hours after the procedure, I was still blurry and I was worried. And I had a friend tell me that, everything was so clear for me. What happens is other patients who had it done years ago just don't remember what it was like then. And so it makes that patient even more concerned. And then the video pops into their phone. And it was me saying, just wanted you to say everything went, beautiful today, and, your pupil's still dilated. Don't worry about the blur. You have your normal healing process. If you're having some pain that's, not relieved by Tylenol or anything that is concerning to you, feel free to call us. But a lot of what you're experiencing is very normal type video.
Right.
And what that meant to them, because they didn't expect that. They weren't told that was coming. We anticipated their anxiety. And it's amazing how much that relieves anxiety.
Well, I love that because of, excuse me, I love that because it gives the patient only the information they need at that moment, right? You and your partners have called it just-in-time information,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because we can really overwhelm them.
Right.
And by the end of a consultation, if we're talking about the questions that they might have 4 hours post-op, I mean, they're glazed over. But to just put that back in their hands in a way that it's easily consumable,
Right.
it gets to them right at the moment where they might have that little piece of anxiety, and that it's you doing the calming. So the
Right.
surgeon stays the hero, which they should. It's really powerful. I don't want to, you can disclose this or you don't have to, because you also don't leave it to just that automated piece. You do something else the day of their surgery to kind of give them an even larger boost in confidence.
Well, I do. I love calling and texting patients. I try to hit everyone, but sometimes, I'm busy. But I'm amazed at how rewarding that is.
Mm.
And, sometimes that's, 30 texts in a day. And so the patients, I remember, years ago, I used to call everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really a powerful experience. And then, the younger patients would, answer the phone, and they're like, hello, like I'm,
Bothering.
interrupting,
Why are-
bothering, and
Who's calling me?
and then I, say, hey, this is Vance. Just wanted to, make sure you're not worried about your, blur right now. Just wanted to make sure you're, getting through the pain part, and your, any questions, and then we'd have a good talk. And then, sometimes they wouldn't answer, so I would try texting, and then I would get an answer back. Oh, wow, I'm doing great. Thank you for caring so much to reach out to me. And it was all energetic through the text. I'm like,
Yeah, you had to change the channel a little bit,
maybe
right?
I should text
Yeah.
and not call. But what was interesting is over the years, and it didn't take that long, it just got older and older and older, we're acting like younger.
Mm-hmm.
And now I just text everybody. And it's amazing how much patients, appreciate that.
Well, if I were to guess for those patients, I'll bet it's between 20 and 30 minutes of effortless communication that you've built into a patient experience between, pre-consult, post-consult, pre-surgery, post-surgery, and then some live interactions afterwards. And I just set the table with that because as we're talking about, creating a great experience, creating customer loyalty by creating effortless, through effortless means, there's a big commitment there. To create all that takes some time and it takes some commitment. And so for those of you listening out there, it can be done, but you have to put your shoulder into it for a little bit to get all of those things prepared in such a way where they can be done in an automated fashion.
Well, and that's why it's so important to map out your patient experience journey and put it into bite-sized chunks so that you can look at not only the communications, but also things like your forms and your checklists and the things that are supposed to be helping make that journey easier for the patient. And then every now and then revisiting it and saying, oh, wow, that's a lot of words. I don't know if there's enough white space there. And golly, I even do that a little bit different. I need to update that form. And so it comes with a, kind of a constant commitment and fascination with making someone's life easier in their journey.
There's a couple of other pain points that I think are helpful for us to discuss because though we didn't give ourselves credit at the beginning of this talk, we did talk about, the importance of
I'm gradually feeling more credit.
Yeah, I think you should, because we just didn't call it what it is. But major frustrators early on with our premium cataract program was the fees. Patients didn't understand.
Right.
They would be 30 days after cataract surgery. They would get their bill in the mail from what they still owed on their insurance, from their co-insurance or copay or deductible. They would be, stark raving mad because they had just written a check the day before their surgery for the elective piece.
Right.
And they thought that those two things were the same thing.
Right.
And it really wasn't that easy for us to communicate the difference.
Right.
Really had a hard time getting patients to understand, one part is for the medical, one part is for the elective part. The elective part is due beforehand. Boy, we really had to turn that into a system that was highly reliable and efficient for people to understand it. You remember those days when we had patients that were bugged by that?
Not only do I remember it, but I remember being confused by it.
Yeah.
Because it was because elective services and insurance reimbursed services were two separate things. And so it was easy when it's two separate things. But when it became, as they worked together, and advanced cataract surgery or refractive cataract surgery was where it really came together. I'll never forget when you made that slide with two fists.
Yeah.
One elective and one insurance, and how simple you made it, and it not only helped the team, but it really helped the patient. And then it led to a financial informed consent form. But it was one thing building on another and respecting those patient frustrations that led to relieving those frustrations for future patients.
Right. And then trying to create an efficient way to both communicate it and help them understand what it means in their specific scenario, right? Because everybody's got different insurance and so on and so forth. The other one, Vance, that I think has been a real winner, and I'm always embarrassed about this one because it's there might even be a couple programs like this within your surgery program that have been such pleasers of patients. One of them is your drop program, post-operative drops.
Right.
And the other one is what we call same day, next day.
Right.
And talk about the drops program first, and then we'll get into how you can do cataract surgery back to back. But the drops one first, because drops were a big frustrator.
Yeah, well, and a lot of patients who are especially undergoing cataract surgery are elderly or have arthritis, and they live alone. And one of the things that they're the most worried about is being a hassle to their family, or maybe not even having family to help them, and they live alone, and they're the most intimidated by the drops. And lots of times we are too intimidated by them doing the drops, because when you see how people take drops and bump their eye, not only does that contaminate the drops, but it can hurt their eye, especially a freshly operated eye. So we've always dreamt of being able to reduce drops, but there just wasn't really a good, confident way to do that until the big European study showed that injecting the antibiotics right inside the eye, that we call intracameral, reduced the chance of infection substantially. And so that's when we started realizing that injecting antibiotics into an eye could, be a safe routine thing, and that we could, take away 15, 16 drops that were happening in a day and take it down to one drop. And that drop happens to be a combination drop that has antibiotic, steroid, and nonsteroidal in it. So that advancement was helpful. So a number of things came together that really allowed us to get to one drop a day. We're on the verge of being able to figure out dropless, and that's kind of dream state. But to go from 15 or 16 down to one to drop a day has been amazing, not only for convenience, but safety, and that
compliance.
Injecting, lessens the chance of infection. And, it takes a big commitment because, as you know, cataract surgery is bundled. A lot of patients are under Medicare. we actually can't charge for those injections. And so once we figured out that the data showed that it was safer, we paid for those injections, and we still to this day do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, something where we're committed to making things easier for the patient.
Well, and so
and safer.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's a couple of layers there, right? Because not only is it more efficient and better for the patient from a convenience standpoint, they're not going and getting prescriptions filled and all those different things before or after surgery, which we know from other studies in the glaucoma world. I mean, many people just don't fill their scripts.
Right.
But then also, to have the compliance be up, to go way up because of the injection, but also to just not even give them optionality, right? You just say, well, this is something that's so important, we're going to eat the cost. And to have a robust program that can stomach that, I think, is really important too. But it is directly tied to the topic today, which is that effortlessness. You're just not willing to put that decision in front of patients. That's a decision made.
That's a decision made. And I'll never forget early on in our injection journey, seeing a patient with Parkinson's. And she was just a delightful lady and petite, but she had significant Parkinson's. And you could tell that she didn't want to be a burden on her family, and she lived alone. And she had talked with her friends about, the drops and how she said, I just don't even know how, that was her main worry, to bother her family that many times a day to come do her drops. And when we taught her about the injections and the fact that we could get it down to 1 drop a day, and you'd think you could have someone help you with that, she just started crying with joy. That was her biggest concern.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a big satisfier.
Yeah.
The other one, and I'll bet for that patient would have benefited from it, is this notion of how we schedule cataracts now. It used to be, a long time ago, we used to wait for cataracts to get ripe. Remember that nomenclature? And then we'd have to schedule them a couple weeks apart. And now we're finding ways that for the convenience of the patient to do, a procedure one day and the other eye the next day. And of all the things, I like to believe that it's our customer experience or our great marketing that created the growth. But such a simple thing is such a crowd pleaser.
Right.
For patients.
Well, the, patient experience and those other things are so powerful, but you're right, making it easy. And we do live in a rural environment, but and so patients do have to travel a ways. But as we became better and better at what we call see and do, which started with our laser vision program, where patients would come in for the consult in the morning and the surgery in the afternoon. Once we started implementing that in the cataract surgery world, we couldn't necessarily do both eyes at once, even though great studies have shown the safety of doing both eyes at once. Insurance won't reimburse fully on that second eye. And so the patient responsibility is quite large if they do both eyes at once. But doing it first eye that day of the consult, so kind of the first eye being a see and do, and they spend the night, and then we do the other eye the next day. So like you said, same day, next day, has been a really big and popular program for us, because patients who travel a ways or they need that driver, they only need it to be, one trip versus 2 trips. And it's become so popular that we even have patients in our community doing it because of just the convenience of getting this done, in such an efficient manner. And I don't think that we're very far away from, our government even being able to allow bilateral cataract surgery. We do that now for refractive lens exchange. And we have patients, that because that's not covered by insurance, that just say, I love the idea of getting both eyes done at once. And then there's some patients who say, I know my insurance is going to help with my cataract surgery, but whatever it costs me to do both eyes at once, I want to do that. Most people, want to take advantage of that third-party reimbursement, so they do it, same day, next day. But I don't think we're too far away from bilateral third-party reimbursed cataract.
Yeah, I think you're right, Vance. And there's enough mounting, I wouldn't say pressure, but evidence because of RLEs and others that it's, a viable, therapeutically viable way to do it as well.
Right.
Well, Vance, this has been such a great conversation on the effortless experience. I want to just take a break right now before we kind of close out this session. Well, thanks everybody for tuning back in. We're back with Dr. Vance Thompson, and we're talking about the effortless experience. And we've come up with a lot of examples today, Vance, on how in your program and other businesses, how they've really created a frictionless experience, really to try to reduce the annoying part of a customer interaction and smooth those over. And, the study that we've been referencing of 100,000 customer interactions showcase that the more that you can do that, that you can focus on whether it's automated or efficient things we can do, can create space to really focus on then the other elements like creating a great guest experience, surprising and delighting. And we'll get to that in a minute. But there's real fundamentals in doing that properly. And that's what I'd like to take our conversation next. There's really 4 kind of, we'll call them effortless behavior requirements. And they start with making sure that whatever standard we're talking about is known industry-wide, right? So that we don't just talk about, this being a preference of just one doctor or just one manager. It's really, this is where the organization is going. And so how do you make sure you've got how do you make sure you have system-wide support or knowledge on a certain topic?
Well, first of all, when we're going to implement something new, we really work hard first amongst the doctors to make sure that it's meeting all of our standard. And can we be aligned on this versus all of us doing it differently? That creates chaos. Mm-hmm. It creates confusion, not only for staff, but definitely for patients. Mm-hmm. And for any business, where it would be, customers. So I think getting alignment with the people who are going to be delivering the care, I think, is really, really important. And then once we have that alignment with the leaders, we then go to the team. And that starts with the managers and making sure that they all feel good, because it amazes me how oftentimes we as doctors can, have ideas, but then once you take it to the people who are really going to deliver it, they shoot holes in it.
Yeah. Well, they've got their opinions on how,
right,
whether or not it will work, right?
And,
can it be sustained?
Exactly. And wow, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
But that, creative tension, that dialogue leads to a better place. And that's how you evolve a program. And then after, the parents, the leaders have figured out, what they're going to do specifically, you then take it to the team. And so this teaching and learning and not just, doing it on the fly is really important. And we have scheduled sessions for that. We have, huddles every day. We have, of course, email, communications, and, we do, retreats where we, review things like this in our patient experience cycle. But there needs to be a method to how you incorporate new things.
Well, you have a front row seat in how some system-wide training can take place because you're the medical director of our firm. And, there's our platform coming out very soon on some of these standards called practice habits, and you use a very similar. We built together a very similar model within Vance Thompson Vision that I think can be great for some of this training as well, and all of the other things we've covered in previous pods, like the huddle and team meetings and the retreat you just had a few weeks ago on premium cataract surgery. But it has to be industry. I mean, I keep saying that wrong. It has to be organization wide. The whole team has to know kind of what the standard is in order for it to be risk-free.
Exactly. And for us, that's not just one center, but that's 9.
Right.
And we take pride in that, actually. It's actually one of the ways that we stay close, because I always worried that when you grow from little to big, can you stay close? And when you're working together on things like that, and you're valuing someone's opinion that's, 500 or 1,000 miles away, just like they're next door, that really builds unity also. And there's good ideas that come from everywhere. But having that kind of, flow to it, leaders and directors and managers figuring it out and then teaching team works really good.
Well, you're segueing to the second behavior that's important for effortless experience creation, and that's that leadership has to coach and follow the standards themselves. So you were talking about the leaders of all of the sites of Vance Thompson Vision getting together and say, okay, so what do we do here that should be standardized across all of us? And what might be some things that can have some local nuance? But then, making sure that's really clear. As Brene Brown says, clear is kind, especially to your team. It makes it really easy to perform when things are very clear. And I think that, when we talk about leadership jumping on board and making sure that they follow the standards, they also can role play then with their team on how the standards play out. I remember, and that transitions to this third point, which is quality assurance. But I remember when we first moved into our new center in 2013, and we had a team member on our phone who just absolutely loved a little restaurant down the street called Honey Baked Ham, right? And described, how do you get to Vance Thompson Vision? Well, it's just right down the street from Honey Baked Ham, and with excitement and fervor, right? And which was great, and maybe not super helpful for people who don't know where that little deli is, right? But it was a real, hallmark location for her, and that's an opportunity for both, leaders and role players, managers to say, okay, so good, great energy. Let's take some of this effortlessness and make it a little bit more consumable by everybody who's going to hear that from you.
Right.
So, quality assurance is really important there. And then the last behavior, that really can help reinforce an effortless experience design is continuous reinforcement, which is basically going back to the first one. Must be an organization-wide, we must have organization-wide knowledge. Leadership has to be on board. We have to do some quality assurance. Then how are we going to continually reinforcement? This whole kind of thing perpetuates itself in order to make things truly effortless. And as we find kind of new infractions along the way, we have to create an opportunity then to automate or overcome or like you say, make the right thing to do, the easiest thing to do in that particular spot. So it can be a great experience and increase loyalty.
Well, and all of that is why I can't wait to get on the platform myself.
Right.
Because what I'm attracted to is constant improvement. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget when you first showed me the patient experience cycle, and you had mapped it out in basically I think there was 7 or 8 sections to it. But when you really start diving into each section, there's multiple points in each section. And one of the things I'm working on right as we speak is going through every detail of our patient experience journey. And you know how I'm attracted to not being satisfied. Mm-hmm. and it's because I do love to surprise and delight. And until we started, learning about the effortless experience, I never had the proper terminology. And so now that I understand this word effortless and how it taught us about how variability in how different people, approach the same issue can actually take away from a patient or a customer confidence. I'm going through the whole experience again with those in mind: effortless and consistency, minimizing variability. And so I feel like it showed me my whole experiential future.
Well, one of the things, Vance, that I just love about you, amongst many, is here you are at a stage in your career where, everybody who knows you would say, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Don't you have a big team for this? But you are fascinated by taking even these details to the next level. And to just show you how close you've been to it. When I say things like, you can't be experientially excellent until you're operationally excellent. That's this.
Well, I have to tell you, I have matured.
Yeah.
And I now pick the dandelions and clean the kitchen.
Yeah. You do both. Right. Yeah. So listen, so where we're going from here, because I think this is a nice setup for what's going to be some real boot camp-like conversations in the future. Because once we get some of these things down in an effortless fashion, in an operationally efficient fashion, it's not like your problems go away, but it creates space, removes variability, creates space then to where now that we've got a really reliable system and a very already pleased customer, now when we can, let's go blow their minds.
Exactly. And you know who else's minds?
Who's?
Your staff.
Yeah.
Because a lot of businesses have an expertise that staff hasn't been trained in, because it took a lot of years of training and this and that. But when the staff find out that what you value what they do, the same as what you spent all these years in training, and that it's almost like soul surgery, what we're going to be working on to make this patient experience more effortless, less variable, and more consistent. And yes, we're going to surprise and delight, but we're going to make it easy for them. And what you're doing is just as important as what I'm doing in the operating room, and what that does for their job satisfaction and for them wanting to work with you and for a long time together. It's a really, really powerful staff motivator.
Vance, and you've said it so many different ways. Our offering at the end of the day is the commodity. So we can do everything right, have a great outcome, and that patient can walk away feeling bad.
Exactly.
Right? Shame on us.
Nobody thanks me for my 1,000 hertz femtosecond laser.
Right.
They do thank me for how we made them feel. And the way we make them feel great is by making it effortless and making their life easier. And again, my saying that the team who loves and cares for each other will create an environment where the patient feels loved and cared for. This fits so perfectly into that I am just so excited about diving into how to make our experience less variable, more effortless, make the patient's life easier. To tell you the truth, I want to do that for the team too. I want to do the same thing.
So good, Vance. Listen, I'm excited about where this is going. I think that there's another book chapter in there for us on where this journey goes. So thanks for joining me and talking about effortless experience creation.
Thank you, Matt.